Hey, what's going on? This is Nick Unsworth, and you're listening to The Chris Cerrone Show, and he's going to help you set your life on fire.
Episode 25.
You're listening to The Chris Cerrone Show. Inspiring interviews with entrepreneurs and awesome people that will motivate you to take action now. Now, your host, Chris Cerrone.
Hello, welcome back, CerroneShow.com to find all my other episodes. And for this particular one, for the show notes, it's CerroneShow.com/25. I've had a lot of people say, // It's fine. CerroneShow.com/25. You won. You can have it. Now, I owe you guys a bonus episode, not only about that, about just the insane amount of downloads that I'm having, just all the YouTube challenge that's about to start. For those of you that do not know, I issued a challenge, a YouTube challenge, and a lot of people signed up. There is a specific group now on Facebook for it. But we'll get into all that in the bonus episode that's going to be hopefully soon. Right now, I want to talk about my next guest. This interview, because of timing and whatnot, was recorded a little while back, but I re-listened to it when I did the editing, and I am just so excited for this one to come out, finally. And if you notice, we reference that a certain Michael O'Neill, I really wanted to get on the show. He was the quote-unquote white whale because it was so dang hard to get a hold of the guy. But he's since been on the show. He had a great episode. And this one is no different. Because not only is she a comedian, not only is she an actress, not only is she a model, not only is she a progressive thinker, she is just an awesome person to talk to. I had a blast talking to my next guest, and you're going to hear all of this in a minute. But before you do, just remember CerroneShow.com/25 for the show notes. And if you're looking to get into a great book, a great audio book, go on thankyouchris.com. You'll thank me later and get your free Audible download. So without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and get into it. It is no secret by now how intrigued I am with comedians. Of course, I'm a fan of comedy and stand-up, but looking past that, you really learn so much about life, business, and even yourself when you get to peek behind the curtain into the highly talented world of comedy. Now, I've been pretty blessed so far with just amazing people on the show, and my next guest is definitely one of them. As a stand-up comedian, she has toured all over the world, from comedy clubs to even the USO in Europe and the Middle East. As a writer, she has been featured in half a dozen comedy books, and personally been featured on Style Network, ABC, TLC, Lifetime, and just countless other channels out there. She was a finalist on NBC's Last Comic Standing, the host of her own podcast, and just an amazing person all around. Rosie Tran, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I am doing great. It's funny because, real quick side note, we were talking about noises and when I'm going to hit record, and it was almost like, okay, I'm going to hit record, and your dog just barked. It was almost like, okay.
I know. I totally was going to say something, but I didn't want to ruin your intro.
No. It was just perfect timing on the dog. So.
I know. She is so bad at... I always close all the windows. I feel like when I have my podcast, people feel like they're being held captive in my living room because I always try to close the windows and the doors and make sure the curtains are closed so that she doesn't see anything, because she's a guard dog. She likes to sit in the window and like guard.
Total guard dog status with this little like, yelp. So, that's awesome. So let's real quick. Since you brought up podcasting, I originally discovered you through
the
Michael O'Neill podcast. This was back in December.
Solopreneur on Fire, right? No, Solopreneur Hour.
Yeah.
Hour. I'm getting him mixed up with John.
And I mean, was just blown away. I'm like, this girl is awesome. I need to know more, and really became a fan out of that. Now, since you've gone into the podcasting world yourself and you're doing interviews and you're listening to podcasting, I mean, do you find that now becoming a just awesome source or a platform for other people to maybe discover your show or just other things in general?
It is. I've definitely gotten a lot more fans. I love podcasting. And let me tell you, I was so resistant to podcasting in the beginning because a lot of people are still discovering it. A lot of people have no idea what a podcast is. Yeah. But I come from the Los Angeles comedy world where podcasting kind of like was born. So every single comic I knew already had a podcast.
Every comic and their mother probably.
And their mother, you know. So when I was approached so many times by other comedians, hey, let's do a podcast together. And, you know, I had at least 5 or 6 comedians. I had a comedian that wanted to do me and 2 other girls and call it a threesome. I had another guy that wanted to do it with me and 2 other female comics and call it, 2 girls, 1 comic or something like that. Yeah. Like I've had so many people. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do podcasting. I'm not going to be another comic with a stupid podcast. Another cliche. And then finally I took a self-improvement workshop and I met John Lee Dumas. Mm-hmm. And he was like, what are you doing? You're an amazing personality. You're so funny. You're so nice. Like, you're perfect for podcasting. And I was like, okay, why does the universe keep pushing me into freaking podcasting?
Yeah, stop.
I didn't curse. I said freaking. So I'm good. I have my substitute swear words for podcasting. But I was just really like against it. And so what I decided to do to fill my podcasting and also kind of not feel like a cliche is I try to speckle my guest comedians. So most of my guests have actually been non-comedians. I have entrepreneurs, business people, religious icons, spiritual people, film and television producers. I try to use less comedians because honestly, if I just use comedians, it would just be a comedy podcast, and I feel like I'd be like everyone else out there.
Yeah. Your podcast, I listen to it, and it's almost like you're building your own army of like-minded thinkers with you.
I am. That is exactly what I'm doing because a lot of people go into podcasting for different reasons. They do it as a platform to launch themselves, or they do it because they want to monetize it. Yeah. Right now, I'm just having a blast and meeting a lot of amazing, great people. And John Lee Dumas told me just build great, amazing content and just dragging people, by the hair to be my guests. And that's what I want. I just want people because I feel like I have a lot of knowledge about certain things and I want to share that knowledge. And I think a lot of people don't understand it's like a lot of people I think grow up with a lot of dogma, not just religious dogma, but just actual dogma in their life where it's just not, it's quote unquote conventional wisdom, but it doesn't work for their life. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like a lot of people, have this idea of like the 9 to 5 and that's how things should be and that's it.
Well, it's almost like the things that were instilled into them by their parents, they take on and they do because they think that's how it's supposed to be. But there comes a point where you're like, yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe this isn't for me.
Well, it's not that it's not for them. It's just that there's universal laws that exist. I'm not trying to sound hippy dippy, because that's something that, bugs me too, is that there's a lot of new age talk out there and kind of hippy dippy talk, and it goes too far in the realm of like la la la, but there's actual realistic stuff and psychological stuff and scientific stuff underneath it that makes sense. Right. Yeah. And so I feel like there's no like logical common sense voice out there that's actually speaking the truth. And that's what I want to do is I want to bring together like-minded and smart and intelligent individuals and let people in the world know, hey, the world doesn't necessarily work the way you've been brainwashed for it to work, whether it's religion, politics, business, entrepreneurship. A lot of people are taught just bullshit dogma. Oh, sorry, BS. Sorry.
No. Trust me, you are okay. And I'm glad that you brought up the entrepreneur thing because you know this. You see it so much in the entrepreneurial space. Just the baggage and the crap that is, call it brainwash. You know what I mean?
It is brainwashing. It's brainwashing because people are taught something from their parents. Basically what happens is most of us are raised with parents who didn't really know what they were doing. Right. This is before the internet. This is before, modern technology. And people were just going with the information that was passed down from their parents, and they were doing the best they could. right? And so they don't have all the information. In fact, probably 90% of the stuff that your parents taught you is just not even true.
Absolutely. 90%, probably 99.9%. And no offense to them, that's just how it was.
It's not like your parents are idiots. It's just that they were teaching to you what they learned from, maybe their parents. Mm-hmm. Now we have the internet. And the internet, you can look up or Google, studies that were done over 40 years by a scientist that proves something to be true. Or you can find psychological information. You can find information about health, wellness, fitness. Name the topic. You can look it up. And there's an expert bringing you that information, not just your mom or dad and their knowledge from their mom and dad. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd be shocked if you can't find what you're looking for on the internet.
And not just that. There is a lot of, misinformation online and a lot of BS, but there's also a lot of information that people didn't know before. So now instead of just getting the information and knowledge from your parents, you have, millions of experts at your fingertips. And that's why I think it's so important for people like me and you to spread the word, because a lot of people just grew up with a bunch of baloney.
Absolutely. And that's, I'm glad I said what I said about your show, because you just confirmed it. You're not taking the traditional guest, like you said, the traditional guest that you would find on a comedian show, or the traditional guy spouting off who knows what, right? You're targeting on these specific people for your show that you could use as a platform to help share with other like-minded people who may be listening in their car, driving on the 410 saying, oh my God, this is it. Yeah, this is right.
And I think that there are a lot of like-minded people out there, but they don't have that avenue to connect with each other because, maybe you live in, I don't know, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho or something. Uh-huh. And I'm not talking bad about Idaho. I love Idaho.
Talk about random.
It's like, Idaho's a beautiful, beautiful state.
Yeah.
But say you live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. The population isn't that big. So maybe you're really, really into something. And there's not a big physical community there that shares that interest. You can hop on a podcast, you can hop on a message board, you can go online, and you can find people all over the world, over 6.5, almost 7 billion people now, that share your interests. So you don't feel completely isolated living in Idaho.
Oh, yeah. And selfishly, and I'm sure you've had this feeling too, some of the type of guests that you have on, maybe in the real world, would charge a hefty amount of money to sit down with them for a while to talk. Whereas you and I, as hosts, we benefit from getting this for free.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a reason why, and I always say at the beginning and my end of my podcast, and I think people sound like think I sound like a broken record, but please donate, people. Please click donate, on the podcast. Please, a lot of podcasts, I know a lot of amazing podcasts that aren't being sponsored yet by corporate sponsors. They don't have the money. They're just doing it out of, my friend Yoshi, who does Yoshi Ditton, which is one of the most popular comedy podcasts. I mean, he has, I think 20 or 60,000 downloads. I don't know if it's per episode or I don't know, but he has a great amount of downloads. Yet he is, recording this podcast on portable podcast equipment that he keeps like in a backpack in his car, and he's not making any financial money from it yet. And he also has a lot of really edgy guests, so he's had issues with corporate sponsorship. Mm-hmm. But he's bringing you all of this information for free. And he'll get here and there. Maybe he'll sell a t-shirt from the website or get a donate here and there. Mm-hmm. But people are getting this free content and they're not realizing that, we're doing it because we love it a lot of times, so click on the freaking donate button. It doesn't not hurt to donate $5 when you're getting, months and months of free content.
Have you not connected this guy with John Lee Dumas? In terms of the back end and getting sponsors?
I've tried to connect him with a couple people. I was approached recently by some corporate sponsors and stuff like that. But a lot of the corporate sponsors that I talked to said that his content was just too edgy. He has a lot of, he has cursing. He's got a lot of porn stars, like weird, interesting people. And that's what is amazing about his podcast. And I think he just hasn't found the right sponsor.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I am a huge Howard Stern fan for probably more reasons than people wouldn't think of, like his interviewing skills. I mean, the guy's had amazing guests on the show, and he, just by what you're saying, kind of sounds like he may fall into that same territory. Well, there's tons of sponsors for the Howard Stern show. There's somebody out there for him.
I think he can get sponsorship. I totally think he can get sponsorship. I think he just needs to look for the right sponsor. But I mean, you would be surprised how crazy it is with the sponsorship. I was just invited to speak at a conference, which was sponsored. I'm not going to say the name and badmouth the sponsor. Mm-hmm. They were totally excited about me. They were going to fly me out to Texas, pay for everything. And then they had a marketing company find me. And then the corporate sponsor pulled out and just canceled on me because they said they thought some of my content was a little too edgy.
Because they see that little red E next to your podcast.
I think, that they were just nervous about it. I do have, this week I have Danelli Bolelli, who's talking about religion. I have people talking about politics, and I, do have had a, porn actress, and I have a couple more in the can that I haven't released. So I could see where they're coming from, but I don't think
it's not that bad. I mean, your show, like I said, I've listened to it. It's like mine. It's very conversational. It's not like you guys don't harp
crazy.
On. Yeah.
It's not crazy. I just think that corporate America is still, they don't understand 100% podcasting and the internet and everything. And they're still a little scared, Mm-hmm. Recently on New Year's Eve, a comedian friend of mine, Natasha Leggero, had this huge media backlash because she, made a joke about, veterans. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a mean or tasteless or even that insulting of a joke. But, there's this fear of lawsuits. There's this fear of I have a friend that has a podcast, and he is being forced to change the name of his podcast because the corporate sponsors don't like the name.
Oh,
and
wow.
He is sponsored by Gillette and Pro Flowers, which I don't even think is that crazy. And they're asking him to change the name of his podcast because it's too edgy for them. So corporate America is still kind of super conservative.
Well, they're really going to have to take a look at what they're doing. I mean, think of it like this, right? The music industry and Napster, what was it, 10, 15 years ago? I don't know what year we're in. Early 90s, mid 90s, something like that. They didn't change. They dug their heels in. Napster came out, which paved the way for a bunch of other services. And then all of a sudden you have Steve Jobs and Apple iTunes. And all of a sudden the music industry are now sitting there with their you-know-whats in their hands saying we're screwed.
Twiddling their thumbs. I think what happens is that the mainstream is always behind. The mainstream takes a little bit longer to catch up.
Yes.
Like right now, a lot of big media tech IPOs are happening. Facebook IPO'd about a year ago. Twitter's IPO. And mainstream corporations are still kind of getting onto that. They're they don't quite understand it. I think with YouTube, it's a lot easier. They really understand the YouTube views because it's very similar to corporate TV, and it's like Nielsen. They can see the numbers of people watching, and they get it. You know what I mean? They really get YouTube, and that's why YouTube has been and Google have been so successful with the ad revenue and stuff like that. But I think that people are still catching on to it. They're still like, oh, that's how it works. I mean, even the government with the SOPA and the internet regulation, they're still kind of figuring out the internet. They don't really get it. Same thing with Bitcoins. All these new things, the government and the mainstream don't really know how to handle it. I mean, half the people I know still don't even know what Bitcoins are, even though they're worth, almost $800 a Bitcoin, and there's such a huge thing that's going on.
People have probably made their retirement by now on the early people that got into Bitcoin.
I am so mad at myself about it too, because I wanted to get in on it, and I myself did not understand it fully about 3 years ago. Uh-huh. So me and my husband do mine, but we're a little bit behind the curve.
10 years from now, Bitcoin is, who knows where it's going to be, and you and I are going to look back on this conversation and be like, we were talking about it. Why did we not go forward with it?
No, me and my husband mine. We have a miner in our bedroom.
Oh,
actually.
Nice.
And we mine Bitcoins and Litecoins and other coins. But we're behind. I mean, we're definitely behind. We should have gotten 3 years ago when it was like $1 a freaking Bitcoin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, comedy, right?
Yes.
Traditional household. I want to say you're first generation, right?
I'm first generation. Vietnamese, yes.
So you come from, I imagine, a very traditional, hardcore background.
I would say beyond traditional.
Okay.
My parents are a bit, they're characters, let's just say that. Okay. My parents are so traditional that if I introduced them to anyone, you would think, if I told someone about my parents, they would think that I was being racist because I would be so stereotypical. They would be like, okay, nobody's like that, Rosie. That's a total stereotype.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get a picture of your background, and I can relate to that, right? myself come from that very, very, very traditional background. Stick within your own. Who's that guy? Keep everything within house. Like just all that stuff. So, I mean, without knowing your background, I bet you a lot of it is somewhat similar.
Yeah. I mean, my parents are very traditional, very conservative. They're interesting.
So from there, graduated high school. This is in Louisiana.
Yes.
Move out to LA. Was it right after college or right after high school?
I moved here right after high school, which I actually think was a huge mistake.
How come?
Well, I kind of came out here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I was very naive about the entertainment industry.
As everyone else that does the same exact thing.
And I think that, obviously I would never have the knowledge that I have now, but if I were somehow able to go back in time, what I would have done is I would have moved to New York or Chicago or another market and establish myself there and then move to LA because
okay.
I've seen people kind of cut in line, the Hollywood line, by establishing themselves in another city where they built a lot of heat and kind of like one of my friends won the Seattle comedy competition, and he is a great guy. He's really funny. I'm not taking anything away from him, but he came to Hollywood already with a manager, with an agent, with all this stuff going for him and not having to start from scratch because he won the Seattle comedy competition and they had scouts there that saw him.
Yeah. So
you know what I mean?
It's almost like you're waiting in line for your flight to board and they check in the A-list members. Like, so your friend was this A-list member. He had his points established. He just waltzes right in and right through.
He did. And he's a great guy and he's really funny and I'm really happy for him. But it's like, if I would have known that, I would have done the same thing because it's so much easier for entertainment. I don't know about other businesses, but for entertainment to establish yourself and become a big fish in a smaller market because it's a smaller market. I would have so easily been a big fish in San Francisco or Seattle or another town. Even Chicago, even as big as Chicago is, the entertainment industry there is not that big.
It's a lot smaller, I imagine.
It's a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So it would have been so easy for me to be a big fish and then utilize those connections to get over here. Whereas when you're coming here kind of completely from scratch, you're kind of like starting from the very bottom.
True, but, and this is something I found this somewhere, who knows, so don't ask, but I found something online. You're in college, you're doing stand-up at the same time, you're trying to get booked at this place that really takes sometimes 2 years just to even get into, and you did it in 4 months. Now, one, is that true? Because you got to question the internet sometimes.
What venue are you talking about?
I don't even. It's Ice House, maybe? Or did I just make that up? It has something with ice in it.
I don't know where you got that information from. I don't know if that's true.
See, that's why I ask. It's.
I'm like, I don't know where you got that information.
It was like some documentary or something that you were trying to get into some comedy club and you did it in like record time.
I mean, I got into a lot of comedy clubs early just because I was in college and I went through a really, really bad breakup, like a horrible breakup that just tore me up. And I didn't want to be at home by myself moping.
Yeah.
So what I did was I started going out every night and I would do stand up 2-3 times a night. Sometimes I would drive an hour and a half just to do a set. And everyone thought I was just so hardworking, but really I just didn't want to be myself in my apartment crying.
It was almost like fight or flight syndrome. Like you had to do something because you weren't staying at home.
It was
sobbing into your pillow,
It was a horrible breakup. The guy cheated on me, and it was my first, real love. I was in like my early 20s, and it was my first real love where I really just got stabbed in the heart, and I just did not want to be at home. I did not want to be at home, just depressed and miserable. And stand up was an avenue for me to get out of my negativity. You know what I mean?
It's just out of all the things you could have chosen. Stand up. I think it's awesome. Like most people get into crafting or they become a movie buff. You're like, I'm going to go stand on stage and just be completely vulnerable and tell jokes and cross my fingers that this works.
Well, it doesn't work. The first few years, it never works. So anyone that's been doing stand up for less than like 3 years and they think they're really funny, it doesn't matter if you're Louis C.K. The first 3 years, everyone is horrible.
And that is why in your intro, I said how intrigued I am with comedians. I mean, I think they are you is pure genius. And you guys have this drive that if you were able to bottle it and sell it, like you'd make Bill Gates look like a welfare case. You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of comedians I know too actually get frustrated with comedy because it's so hard, the actual business side of it, and they just get frustrated and they leave the industry. And it's weird because a lot of people either become deadbeats because they can't live with the fact that they gave up stand-up, or they become extremely successful by channeling that energy.
Absolutely. I mean, I had Michael Wheels Parisi on the show, and we were talking about that, how he just had this explosion of, goodwill, and he really blew up in the scene like a while ago. And then he hit a point where it got so bad, he could not book anything. He was in LA. He was depressed. Like, it just really hit this low. Thankfully for his case, he stuck with it, and now he's on the rise. And since then, he's just done phenomenal things. I imagine a lot of comedians, and you probably see this all the time, they'll have some fame, they'll have some success, they think it's going to be awesome. They'll hit a low point, and then that's where they kind of just die off into the wind.
I know so many comedians that have had a career of a roller coaster, and I really think, I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, this person's done for it, there has been this and that. I never say that, first of all, because it's just really negative and you never know where someone's going to end up. Mm-hmm. And second of all, it's kind of a reflection of yourself, because this industry is so, it's like the wind. You never know what's going to happen. So you can be on a show and very successful and be making six figures and point to someone and say, well, there has been, they're just done with. And then the next day the network pulls your show and you didn't save your money, you weren't smart with your money, and you're homeless. And I've seen comedians
in an instant.
I've seen comedians with great amount of success and making tons and tons of money, touring, they're popular, this and that. And then for whatever reason, their star just fades. I mean, look at Dane Cook. And Dane Cook is a great, comedian. A lot of people badmouth him, but he was on top of the world. He was on top of the world less than 2 years ago. And now, has anyone heard of him? You know what I mean?
No, I think 2006 was his, or 7, somewhere around there, was like his mega year, and it has not been the same since.
It has not been the same. You plateau out. People get tired of you. I mean, it's just like anything else. You have your favorite band from 10 years ago, and maybe you still like them and you would go to a concert here and there, but you just kind of moved on. And it's not because that band isn't a good band anymore. Yeah. It's just like a new band comes out and now you like that new band. And it's just, that's why entertainment is so, in and out, up and down. The wind blows here, the wind blows this way. It's like people's tastes just change, or sometimes being too popular actually hurts you, because what happens is then people get like sick of you, and then you're like the Macarena. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You become a fad at that point.
You become a fad, and it doesn't matter how funny and how talented you are. People always say, oh, the cream rises to the top. Well, a lot of people are sick of eating cream. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Not to get too deep into this, but first of all, like you said, it's like the wind. That's life in general. You're never going to be at the top forever. You're never going to be at the bottom forever. So what, right? I think the person individually, though, not to get too deep, if they realize that within themselves, they will feel a hell of a lot better and be more fulfilled as a person, and really be able to deal with that stuff and really have a better life.
Well, you have to be centered, and you have to realize that it all is just, it's nothing personal.
Yeah.
Where it's really hard for people to understand, how can someone look at me and, say I tell a joke and people don't laugh, or, I used to sell out a 1,000-seat theater. Now I can't even get 30 people to come to my show. Yeah. Someone might take it personal and say, oh, they don't like me anymore, I'm not talented. It has nothing to do with you. It literally has nothing to do with you, which is it's such a hard concept to not take personal, because you're like, well, this is me. I'm a comedian. I'm giving them me. Yeah. Because it's not, you're not an actor. Well, I'm an actress, but when you're doing stand-up, you're not an actor. You're literally just being yourself. Mm-hmm. And just talking about stuff that you find funny or jokes that you've written. So, it can't get more vulnerable. You're literally just giving the audience yourself. So when they don't like you, you're kind of like, how can I not take this personal? I'm giving them me. Yeah. But it has nothing to do with you.
You know what? That really applies to so many other things. For me in this podcast, I may have upwards of 70, recorded interviews. But as you and I are talking, the thing hasn't launched yet. Like, it's about to launch. I'm on the weekend eve of this thing launching, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what if they don't like me? What if this sucks? What blah, 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 blah. But you mentioned staying centered. Immediately when I had that reaction, I need to be like, okay, What happens. Like I'm doing this because I love doing it, not because I want to make people like me. And I think the more people realize that, the better off they're going to be, right?
It's true, but it's one of the hardest things because I think that we are conditioned as a society to get approval. You know, your little girl, your little boy, your mommy and daddy, you know, tell you to do something, you do it good, you get a hug or a kiss. You do something bad, you get yelled at or spanked. Now, I'm not saying don't spank kids when they're, you know, not bad, or don't praise kids when they're good, but we're literally being conditioned to get approval.
So how do people snap from that? It's
something you have to unlearn as an adult. You know, I feel myself all the time reacting negatively, and I feel the reaction, and then I have trained myself to stop, look at the reaction and say, okay, what's going on here? And I think that's really important for people to do. I know so many people that listen to podcasts and, you know, read books and this and that. Mm-hmm. And that's great. That's the first step. But you have to take into action what you're learning.
Yeah.
And that is the hard part. And 99% of the times when you are learning and taking action, it hurts. Like, it's not the fun stuff. Like, when things are going well,
it's uncomfortable hurt.
It's uncomfortable. You know, like, when things are going well, of course, everything's going to be great.
Your dog agrees too.
There's my puppy again. She's like, I agree.
Yep.
When things are, you know, it's like a relationship, right? When things are going well, of course, you know, you could be dating a psychopathic killer and things would be great.
Oh, you're on a pink cloud.
Yeah, you're on a pink cloud. But it's when stuff, you know, hits the fan that people's real true character comes out, and that is the time when you trust, where you're testing your soul. I mean, it sounds super deep and kind of cheesy, but it's true.
No,
it's like
absolutely. Out of the box podcast. I mean, that's pretty much kind of what we're talking about. That's some of the things that you go through on the show, right?
I try to interview people that have an interesting perspective, and a perspective that, you know, talking about struggle or talking about certain things, because I just think we don't talk about. It's not a depressing podcast. It's pretty positive, but I don't think we talk about the nasty stuff enough in life, about, you know, the bad stuff. And I know a lot of people don't know how to deal with problems and don't know how to deal with what they're given. And I try to bring people that have positive stories or information to help people deal with stuff, because, you know, so many people just, you know, go out and get wasted at the bar or whatever. And I'm not saying, you know, that I'm against any of that, because, you know, I have my next episode coming out. I have a psychedelics expert that talks about, you know, psychedelics and exploring drugs and stuff like that.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah, ayahuasca and all sorts of fun stuff. I'm releasing that next week, but I just, you know, it should be a tool. Everything that you have is a tool. Money is a tool. Drugs are a tool. Mm-hmm. Your friends are a tool, you know, that you can use to grow or learn, or you can just, you know, sit around and watch TV and, you know, or smoke a bunch of pot, which is one choice. But why not use pot to elevate yourself and make your brain expand? Why not use your friends as a way to, you know, grow and learn and stuff like that? And I think conflict is really, really important, because it teaches us about ourselves.
Not only about ourselves, but how to either act going forward or not act, you know, going forward. But not everyone has that ability to really look at a situation, break it down, and say, okay, what next, right? And that's why I like your show. You said it's definitely not depressing. First of all, whoever is listening to us right now that has not heard Out of the Box podcast, I highly, highly suggest you do. But with that said, it is not depressing. It's just intriguing. It's inspiring. It's just a big fan. I don't know if you can tell by now how much I'm raving about it. Well, no, really, because you're bringing on these guys. Okay, so part of my show, I have the usual suspects in the podcasting world, right? But I'm bringing on, you know, comedians, YouTube stars, and just all these other people. And I resonate what you're doing as well, because you're doing the same thing. You're not just bringing on the usual suspects. You're actually giving thought into your guests.
I want all of my guests, and, you know, a lot of my comedian friends have gotten really mad at me. I've had comedians friends say, well, how come you haven't invited me to be on your podcast yet?
Traitor.
You know? Or they'll see me tweeting about the podcast and they'll kind of like take it personal. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, how come you haven't asked me to be on your podcast? And I've told them, you know, I don't really have the typical comedy podcast. And I've also had, you know, friends say, oh, what are you, working on right now? I'm like, oh, I've been really busy with the podcast. Like, oh, you and every other comedian has a podcast. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't want to do that. First of all, I wanted to do it as an outlet from stand-up. And I don't know if I've talked about this on any podcast, but I'm not where Wheels was, where he was kind of like at a lull, but I'm at a plateau for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My career is kind of not growing at the pace I want it to grow. And I don't feel that it's anything in my power. You know what I mean? Like some people, like I feel like I'm developing, I'm working hard on my stand up and I'm doing everything I can. And everything that I'm doing in my power, I feel like I'm doing. So I wanted to take a break from that because I was getting a little manic. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
So the podcasting for me is an escape, but it's still doing what I like, which is entertaining and talking. And
it's a creative outlet for you.
It's a creative outlet, which is why I really want my guests. I'm kind of like protective. Like I really want my guests to fit into that mold. And I actually have guests. Like I haven't had Michael from Solopreneur Hour on my podcast yet. I think he would be a great person for my podcast.
You need to have him. You know what? I've been pretty happy with some of the guests that I've been able to get. Like John Lee Dumas booked on my show, Evan Carmichael. Like I've had huge names. Michael right now, and I'm putting that out there so he can hear it, is my white whale. I am trying to get Michael to be on the show.
He actually wants to do my podcast, and I want him on the podcast. But I don't. I know this sounds silly. I just haven't felt right yet. Like I haven't felt like it's time for me to have Michael on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, it's got to click. Know? It's got to click for you and for him so that you're providing the best show you can. It's got to feel right to you.
I do. And I want to kind of mix it up too. Like I've kind of been film producer, television heavy, like entertainment heavy on it. And it's because a lot of people that I contacted, it just happened that a lot of producers and other people emailed me back at one time. Mm-hmm. And I like, didn't want to release the episodes. I was like, wanted to hold on to them, but it was a period where I was kind of low on episodes. And so because I didn't have that many in the can.
Yeah.
And some people that I reached out to be guests hadn't responded yet. Mm-hmm. So I think I had like 2 or 3, like I had a film producer and then I had another film producer, and I was like, I don't want it. Like, I know it's so silly. You know, it's not like I get 1 million downloads an episode or something, but it's like my baby. Like, I want everything to be perfect. So I didn't want all these film people. I wanted to like spread them out, you know?
Yeah. Well, you want to, I totally get it. You have a vision in your head, and this vision that you have that you have in your mind needs to work exactly that you see fit. You're not going to throw in, a Michael O'Neill or a Hollywood producer because that's what you think is going to be, going to get you the most views or whatever. Because in the long term, you've realized in the long term, look, this is the overall theme and what I'm trying to do with my show. This is how it has to go.
Yeah, and I love Michael, and like I said, he wants to be on the podcast, and I want him on the podcast, but I just haven't felt right yet. No. I'm not ready for Michael.
Not now. Go away.
No. He wanted to do he tweeted me like on New Year's Eve and he said he had a vision that we did a weekly podcast together. And I'm like, no, no way, no way. Because I'm so overwhelmed right now with just getting out of the box to as many listeners as possible that I cannot put on another project. But I mean, I guess he felt like we really, really clicked when I was on Solo Hour.
Well, you know what? Just from an outside listener listening, I don't know if you knew him prior, but the show was fantastic. You can usually tell, right? You listen to podcasts and radio. You can usually tell when someone's not clicking on a show. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree, and I've had guests at my house. I haven't released some of those episodes where I really felt like I was pulling teeth. I'm like, really? You're going to make me go there? Like, come on. You're that awkward and uncomfortable that you're not going to talk?
Yeah.
I had one of my guests, I'm not going to say who it was, but he drove me nuts because he was so talkative and amazing and awesome off the air, and then I pressed record and he became so awkward and quiet.
Why is that? I've experienced the same thing.
I was like, well, I don't know. I think he just, I should have lied to him and told him that we weren't recording, because off the air, he was just really lively and great. And I pressed record. He got really nervous and he wasn't giving me any answers. I asked him certain questions and he said, well, we'll talk about that off the air. I'm like, no.
Why do you think you're here?
And he was really, really scared to just let loose. And I think, maybe because I'm a comedian and a podcaster, so I'm just used to just saying whatever. Yeah. But he got really shy.
Real quick, I give Michael a hard time. I actually met him in person here in Vegas. Got to hang out with him at a party. Same thing with John Dumas.
Are you in Vegas?
Yeah, I live in Vegas.
Oh my gosh!
Born
okay,
and
I'm going
raised.
to be in Vegas the last week of April.
I'm writing that down real quick. Where at?
I'm not even performing. I'm just going on vacation. Believe it or not. Yeah, because I don't do that.
So you and your husband coming to Vegas for vacation?
Yes, so we should meet up.
I'll tell you what. You guys come down. We'll go out with you guys and me and my wife, and we'll take you to a true either a local spot, right, or a local restaurant, something local, something you would not see if you're just an average visitor, because people do not know. This is the biggest frustration. Born and raised in Vegas, they do not know Vegas. Vegas is not just the Strip, Like,
I grew up in New Orleans, and that's how I feel about New Orleans.
So you get it. Yeah, you get it.
I get it, because New Orleans is very similar to Vegas, and I actually call New Orleans the original Vegas because it's one of the, obviously it's an older city. It was founded in the 1700s, and you can have open drinks. They do open drink containers.
Yep, just like here.
And they have, I don't know if prostitution is legal, but they definitely have a lot of strip clubs, and they have a casino, and it's that party vibe, right? But there's the Strip. It's similar to the Strip. There's the French Quarter, which is similar to the Strip, and everyone goes there, and that's all the only place to go.
Yeah.
And so they have this stereotype of New Orleans that is kind of hokey. And New Orleans is not like that. New Orleans is a beautiful, historic city with amazing architecture and amazing history and so much going on for it, more than just the French Quarter and seeing some beads and seeing some boobies.
So
and
you get it.
I totally get it.
Yeah, I mean, there's places literally like 2 streets away from the Strip that the tourists have no idea. Just amazing food, amazing scenery, amazing atmosphere. I mean, even just going to the Strip, we take back roads to get in and then back roads to get out. We don't mess with the Strip.
You're funny. Yeah, so we will be in Vegas because I travel so much. Not so much this year because I'm focusing on the podcast, but usually I travel so much for stand-up that traveling kind of feels like work.
Yeah.
And I've been...
It is.
It is. It feels like work. And so I never, ever go on vacation. Usually I just want to stay home. But we haven't been to Vegas in a long time. So I was like, let's go to Vegas.
I would love to meet up with you. We talk on Twitter. Just message me. Give me a heads up when you guys come down.
I will.
So talking about taking action. Now, you mentioned it somewhere 5-10 minutes ago. And I wrote it down because part of my show, that's what I want people to do, right? I want to hear somebody come up to me one day or shoot me an email and say, you know what, Chris, I was really thinking about doing XYZ, and the show you did with Rosie really pushed me to do it. Thank you so much. Like, that honestly is what I am praying that happens with the show, right? Outside of monetization, I'm not even thinking about that yet. The number one thing people need to do, though, for that to happen is take action. And you were at a conference with John where the podcast hasn't launched yet. You didn't even do anything. You were thinking about it, right? Yes,
I was thinking about it. I had just gone to the LA Podfest, which one of my best friends is, and the first guest ever on my podcast, Graham Elwood, actually is one of the co-founders. And I had been there the week before, and then the week after I did a self-improvement workshop, met John, told him about my idea to launch a podcast. He was like, oh my God, I want to help you with this.
Yeah.
And
he's the right guy to help you too.
Exactly. And it just took off from there. And it was crazy because, and I told this story on the, when he was on my podcast, but it was something about him. I was kind of drawn to him, and the conference had, I think, about 160 people there. Mm-hmm. And out of 160 people, I came up to him, and I just had this burning desire to tell him about the podcast for some random reason.
Not knowing who he was.
I did not listen to his podcast. I had only listened to comedy podcasts. I had no clue who he was. Mm-hmm. And, he just felt like it was, like almost like serendipity.
I think the world really put you in that position, and I don't know what it is. I can't describe it, but certain things like that happen for a reason, and that was your moment to meet John, and you recognize that, and you're like, you know what? Boom, I'm doing it.
I think that's something that is very important, though, because had I not met John, I think I would have started, but I wouldn't have had all the tools to be, kind of like excited about it. Mm-hmm. But I think, like you said, you want people to be inspired to do stuff. I think the number one thing I can tell people is just to jump in. I know it sounds silly. I know there's people who are like, have analyzed their personalities and they're like, well, I need everything perfect. I need it to have, and what if I make a mistake? And well, I'm quitting my job to do this and I don't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah, I need to have the perfect logo first.
I need to have the perfect logo and this and that. I mean, when I started, everything was not perfect. There was a lot of things that really irked me and got on my nerves. I had asked my husband to buy certain equipment. He bought the wrong equipment, and he's an audio tech. So I was like really angry at him and, all this stuff, and everything has just worked out. So I think that
you learn as you go.
You learn as you go. And I think trial by fire is really important. And I think that life experience is the number one teacher. And so many people are afraid of pain and suffering and fear and life experience. And you know what? It's like you break that glass ceiling and then that becomes the floor. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like something you were scared of 6 months ago, if you just jump in, you look back and you're like, why was I afraid of that? That is so stupid.
I have a 5-year-old. And we do that probably every other day. It's a battle to get him to do something, whether it be trying food, riding his bike, just something, right? He does it, and I'm like, see, it's not that bad, right? No, I love it. And it's like, okay, well, the same thing is fast forward to someone who's now in their 30s or something, like myself. As soon as you break through that glass ceiling, you just do. Like, don't worry, don't flatter yourself, just do.
You got to do, because you know what? Your ego and your mind will find an excuse every time. Every time. If you want to do something and you're scared to do it, let me tell you, you will come up with 101 excuses you never thought of, because that's how your ego works, and that's how the negative voices in our head work. Mm-hmm. You just have to do stuff, and you have to fail, and you have to, it's like, it sounds so cliche, but it's like, learning how to ride a bike. Yeah. You fall off the bike and it hurts. And then after you fall 2 or 3 times, you're like, okay, I'm over this. You know what I mean? And then you just learn how to ride the bike.
That too. But you have your parents to help. It's okay, blah, 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 blah. Like all the encouraging things you tell your kids. It sounds like you were at a conference surrounding yourself with encouraging people. Now, would you say that has a part
really
of it too?
Important.
Yeah.
That is really important. Surrounding yourself with positive, like-minded people. Mm-hmm. It's really hard, because I, at a time in my life, not now, obviously, was surrounded by a lot of negative people. Yeah. And sometimes those negative people are family members or friends we've had for a really long time, and it hurts to cut them out of your life. But you know what? As soon as you do, it's just amazing, because a lot of us, let's be real, a lot of us grew up with not perfect parents or friends and family that were not, that positive. And I know I had a lot of friends in my early 20s that were just negative people, and I couldn't be around them, and I had to cut them out. And I was so scared to cut them out, Chris. And you know what? As soon as I cut them out, they didn't really notice. Like, that's how low level these people were. And I was holding on to them. There were certain friends that I phased out, like calling them less and hanging out with them less. And I thought they were going to call me and bug me, and they were going to totally be upset that I wasn't hanging out with them. They just kind of disappeared.
They're like, okay. And then pretty soon, 10 years goes by.
Yeah, and you're not even worried about it. It's a little tougher with negative family members, but I think that you got to surround yourself with positive people. You got to surround yourself with like-minded people, and you got to take action. That's the number one thing, because otherwise you're going to be sitting in your apartment, and
woe is me.
Woe is me. And the number one excuse people have is time. Oh, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to learn another language. I don't have time to do this. I've got a kid. I've got this and that. Let me tell you something. There are people, political leaders, celebrities who are doing a full 80-hour week, career. Mm-hmm. And they also are a mother, a father, a whatever, XYZ. These people are not superhuman. They're people with blood, and they go to the potty, and, roses doesn't come out. They're real people. And if you are committed to something, you will find the time.
Well, earlier in the show, we were talking about you can literally find anything on the internet. Well, if you're feeling sorry for yourself, just go on the internet, go on YouTube, search, inspiring people, maybe even try that. And you will find so many other people that has probably had it 10 times harder than you, but yet they've just exploded in the category that they chose to go down.
And also email them. You would be surprised. I have emailed people that I thought would never respond to me, and they responded. And, I've had mentors. Same thing with some of my other friends. One of my friends emailed a famous artist that he looked up to, and the guy emailed him back, and they became really good friends.
Boom. Just like that.
Just like that. These people are just average people. Some of them are not going to respond because they're too busy, and some of them are, just, might blow you off. Uh-huh. But pick like 10. Yeah, that's life. They're busy. But pick 10 people that you think, that you find and think, hey, this person is really interesting to me. I wonder if they would mentor me. I wonder, they might even charge you. But some of them would be happy to give you advice at least. Yeah. You would be surprised. A lot of people that are famous or that you think are famous or well established are, they just consider themselves normal people, and they get an email and they respond to it.
Well, I'm sure you being in the Hollywood industry and acting and comedy, you've seen a lot of quote unquote super famous people, and you yourself is probably like, they're just like normal, just like I am, the normal people.
It's actually bad because sometimes you meet these celebrities and they're put on such a high pedestal, and I don't want to say it's a letdown when you meet them, but you just kind of realize that it's a lot of hype.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you could be jaded after that, to be honest,
Yeah, and sometimes it's kind of sad. Like, there's a lot of famous comedians I've met that I really looked up to growing up, and then I met them, and, they're just as crazy and neurotic and, like, insecure as I am, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is depressing. I kind of liked you better when you were, like, a role model.
Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, we've been talking about it for like 15 minutes. You got to take action, really. And that's what you did, and that's why you're on the road that you're on now.
Yes, it's so important. But more than taking action in the arena that you choose, so whether it's career or relationship or whatever, I think it's important to be self-aware and take action in that arena. Because if you are not self-aware, you will self-sabotage whatever avenue that you try, regardless of commitment. That is something that I know is a fact, is that there are many people who are, very talented and very committed, and I've seen them self-sabotage. And if you have that about yourself and you're not self-aware of it, then that is not good. So I think first and foremost, getting centered, becoming self-aware, working on yourself and your personal development, and then moving forward to whatever your passion is.
Personal development is huge. And I'm glad you brought up self-aware because, like you said, someone will self-sabotage themselves, not even be aware of it. They'll blame it on bad luck or woe is me and I'm not good. They'll go, you know what I mean? But in all reality, it could be something so easy to fix or so easy to talk through with somebody, and they'll be able to pull themselves right out of it if they were self-aware.
That's true. And I think a lot of people are still kind of growing out of that idea that psychology is kind of like this hokey, it's for, there's my puppy. Mitzi! They think it's for, crazy people. My parents come from the generation that they think psychology and psychotherapy and all that other stuff is for crazy people. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to a shrink or a therapist, but if you learn the basics about psychology and look at your own life, and you can just like go online and look it up, the basics of psychology, and kind of learn about your own well-being and become self-aware, you can see different behaviors that you're doing, not to beat yourself up and say, why do I do this? I'm an idiot. But so you can stop doing it, because some of these things are just subconsciously passed down to us. And
then it turns into insanity.
It turned into insanity.
And then literally you are an insane person.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are taught to I think it's really important to like the doing, because I think a lot of people are taught, to think and analyze and you want to be smart. You want to think about what you're going to say. And that is important, to be intelligent and, read and think and stuff like that. But there also is something called overthinking. And that is a form of self-sabotage. I mean, it's like when you say, okay, well, I'm going to start a podcast. And then you sit there and you think about every single negative scenario that could happen. What if nobody listens to it? What if I'm not going to have time? Well, how am I going to find guests? That is a form of thinking, but it's not productive or positive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, you obviously don't have that problem because you launched your podcast. You're doing well. So what kind of things are you excited for in 2014? Like, when you think about your podcast and the next year, maybe even two, what are you excited about?
I am excited about hopefully reaching, the more and more people and meeting more people that are like-minded, interesting, unique, having, guests that I vibe with that can bring a positive message to my listeners. And I'm just really, really interested. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm trying to explore the possibility of going, why am I blanking on the word where you can see pictures?
Where you can see
streaming.
Okay.
Streaming live, because I've had a lot of people asking for video because they want to see the guest or they want to see me or whatever. So
you can actually do that and have a separate video podcast.
I was thinking of that, but usually when I'm podcasting, I'm in my PJs. So now I'm like, oh, I have to like look nice too.
That's the big secret of podcasting, people. Like usually you look like 9 miles of bad road, but you're talking to like a millionaire or a famous guest.
Exactly. So
like right now I'm in my swim shorts, sitting in my closet, talking to you. In my closet.
Is that how you keep the toddler crying out? You hide in the closet?
2 boys, 5 and 2, Italian household. You can imagine how loud it gets with, you know, the volume on the TV up to like 60 and things crashing. And I was sitting and testing my microphone and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not good. You know, you're staring into space when you're thinking. Well,
yeah.
I was staring at my closet. I'm like, oh, I'll go sit in there. Tried it out. Sounded great. Got rid of the noise. But because I'm surrounded by clothes, it's almost as if I have some like cool studio. Like it just sounds really, really good, you know?
Closets are a really, really good place to record. We actually record, we did a audio thing or whatever. My husband's an audio tech and we recorded it in their closet and it sounded just like a professional sound studio.
Exactly. DIY all the way. So we are actually coming up on our time and kind of disappointed because there's so many different things I could have chatted with you about that.
We'll have to do a part 2.
Exactly. You know what? We will one day. We'll do a part 2 and we'll make it totally different and maybe a little creepy to some, but Rosie, thank you so much for being on the show. You can find Rosie at rosietran.com. Find her on Twitter. That's how you and I connected. Twitter.
Yes.
So for anybody who doesn't believe that you can still find and talk to people on Twitter, you and I are proof. So again, thank you so much.
Guys, check out outoftheboxpodcast.com. Follow me on Twitter at Funny Rosie, and thank you for having me.
Rosie has really something special going on in her podcast. You really need to check it out. Out of the Box Podcast. And wasn't that just a fun interview? I mean, didn't we expand your mind a little bit? And I know that sounds silly, but a lot of the things that we talked about is stuff that I think about on a daily basis. It's a lot of that self-reflection and awareness and just, I don't know. I really had fun talking to her the entire time. I hope we can do a part 2, or maybe even I'd be a guest on her show. I don't know. I'll have to find out. I'll have to reach out and see if that's okay because, again, we had a blast and there's so many different avenues that I could have went down personally, but I had to keep the topic at hand, the business, the entrepreneurs, the taking action, all that. That's all important. I don't know. That's pretty much how much fun I had talking with Rosie. So don't forget, cerroneshow.com// the line that tilts, number 25, cerroneshow.com/25 for all the show notes. As always, cerroneshow.com, where you find every single wonderful guest that I've had such great conversations with. And don't forget, thankyouchris.com. Get your free Audible download. You're listening to podcasts anyway. You might as well get your free book. Educate yourself. Come on. Thank you so much for listening. I continuously have a blast every day doing this. And that's it. That's all I got. Still with me? So a little behind the scenes, the reason why a bonus show did not come out this weekend is I literally spent the entire weekend with my kids. It's that simple. Sometimes you got to disconnect to connect, and I am so glad I did. So think about that next time. That's it. See you.